fueling the economy, gas prices, inflation, and the federal debt, unraveling the economic odyssey. Today, we have a special guest on our show, Professor John Tomasi, who is an accomplished author and keynote speaker, and so much more. Rennie, if you would, please bring John in.
John, come on in. I'd like to introduce John Tomasi. John and I go back 40 years. We were roommates together. We lived on M Street in Hampton Beach. What happens on M Street stays on M Street. We did some drug task force work together, both police officers. We're both still going at it. He's in Hampton. I'm somewhere else. But he's also an accomplished economics professor. And he's written several papers on economics. 63% of Americans today feel the economy is a big part of their lives. And so I thought this would be an important show to do. So welcome, John.
Thanks, Lee. Glad to be here.
So,
how you doing, Lee? Chet.
Hey, guys.
I'm doing well. John, it's an honor to have you. So I think I'm going to take the first question. And without putting you on the spot, from what I've been reading and hearing, it's my opinion that the Biden administration is going to default on the loans, the current debt obligations that they have, which I think may or may not be the catalyst that's going to usher in the digital currency. Prove me wrong on that one.
Not 100% wrong. What we're looking at right now is January 19th is a possible default on our loan. That's when the debt ceiling expires and it has to be renewed. And it's incremental after that, January 19th, February 2nd. And we have to come to an agreement between Republicans and Democrats. And what is really holding up passing the ball is the more extreme Republicans, and I don't necessarily disagree with them because they want to do something about our debt. The debt is approaching $32 trillion, and let me try and put that in perspective. The last time the United States was without debt was in 1836. Andrew Jackson paid off the debt. By the time Obama got in office, 2009, the debt was $10 trillion. And the next 8 years, he doubled the debt to $20 trillion. Now, a lot of people, including myself, can't comprehend how big a number a trillion is. Let me try and put that in perspective. We all like the idea of being millionaires. 1,000,000 seconds is about 12 days. If we're lucky, some of us, not me, will become billionaires. 1 billion seconds is about 31 years. And 1 trillion seconds is 31,700 years. That is a tremendous amount of debt. And we got to stop kicking the can down the road. So there is a chance that, yeah, we may see a default come January 19th.
That's what I thought. Thank you for validating that for me.
All right, Ren, you want to hit the second one?
You want me to do the second one too?
Yes, sir.
John, how do key economic indicators such as a GDP growth, unemployment rates, and inflation reflect on the overall health of the economy? And what other factors should we consider when assessing its well-being?
You hit the main three: GDP, inflation, and unemployment. GDP for the third quarter, and the initial GDP came in at 4.9%. It just got revised upwards to 5.2%. Now, prior to that, second quarter's GDP was 2.2%. So that was pretty good. And let me give a very quick definition of GDP. It is the value of all final goods and services produced in an economy in a given year. And we're up in the trillions of dollars. And it's made up primarily of consumption by the consumer. About 65 to 70% of GDP, gross domestic product, comes from us. We go out and we buy brand new cars, we buy food. we buy services. Like when you go to your tax accountant, that's included in GDP. So it's at the moment not looking too bad, but I'm going to address that in the future in a second. The other two measures we're looking at, the unemployment rate. Well, the unemployment rate is 3.9%. That's pretty good. And inflation is coming down. It's down to 3.4%, I believe. Now, that's up from a high year over year to 9%. And that was caused by a number of reasons, that high inflation rate. One, the Fed dropped the ball a little bit. The chairman, Jerome Powell, said, well, I think inflation is going to be transitory. Well, here's a newsflash. All economic events are transitory, okay? And I think he dropped the ball in 2020, 2021 by not raising interest rates because he was up for renewal as chairman of the Fed. And he typically, when you raise rates, it hurts the economy. Okay, it hurts the economy. And he didn't want to do that. He wanted to get reappointed by Biden. So now we have very high interest rates. The 30-year mortgage rate is over 7%. Last I checked, I think it was for a fixed 30-year mortgage, it was 7.3%. So at the moment, the economy is not doing that badly. But let's look at what we call leading economic indicators. Indicators that give us some sort of idea what's going to happen in the future. Orders for durable goods are down. That's a leading economic indicator. The stock market has been trading sideways since 2021, and about 54% of the population has some sort of investment in the stock market, whether it be outright ownership of stocks or a pension plan, what have you. You're connected to the stock market. So that is very important. The other thing is consumer confidence. And consumer confidence is tied very closely to the price of gasoline. Fortuitously, gasoline has come down in the past year because when the price of gas goes up, that is a primary fuel, pardon the pun, for inflation. Because when gasoline goes up, well, our individual expenses go up because we have to pay for that gasoline. Business expenses goes up because everyone has to get their goods from point A to point B, not to mention if you're providing a service, it costs more to heat and what have you. So I see that was a primary cause of inflation. And a lot of people were blaming the war in Ukraine. Yeah, but what's very important in economics is expectations. If you do a Google search, people out there who are listening, do a Google search, Joe Biden, I'm going to end fossil fuels. And he's said that a number of times during the debates, during visits when he was campaigning, that I am going to end fossil fuels. Well, people have this expectation that fuel is going to get more expensive, so they try and stock up. You could buy your heating oil ahead of time, and what that does, it just ups the price of fuel, and that increases inflation.
John, I got two quick follow-up questions before we go to chat. First one is the unemployment numbers from they can be manipulated. They come from the White House. Am I right on that one?
Bureau of Labor Statistics sends about 20,000 agents out every month, and they hit every county in the U.S. going from home to home. So not too much. I mean, the White House has, they have the bully pulpit, and they could go here and there a little bit, but I like the Bureau of Labor Statistics.
Okay, we have a guest on, Mr. B here. He wants to know how much of the GDP concerns munitions and manufacturing and sales.
Well, you would look at I'm looking at the defense budget for that, and you figure government spending is about 20% of GDP, and again, that fluctuates. So what's defense spending as a percentage of the budget? That number eludes me at the time, but I would guess 30-40%.
Okay. Thank you, John.
Thank you, Jeff. All right.
You betcha.
Yeah, John, I got there's a whole whole topic I'd like to cover within all this. And I'd like to get your thoughts on digital ID, digital currency, and social scores, and how that's going to relate to life here in America, because it seems like it's being pushed extremely hard.
I started teaching economics in 1987, and in the late 90s, they started talking about a digital currency. And if you look at how we measure money in a number of different ways in the United States, the most common measure of money is what we refer to as M1. And that includes currency. That's cold hard cash, dollar and coin. It includes checking accounts, and it also includes savings accounts. That is roughly about 50-50 over the past 20 years. It hasn't changed. A number of things, though, has changed. For instance, Harvard just did a recent study that said that 97% of all online transactions are some form of digital currency, whether it be credit card, debit, PayPal, what have you. So we're getting more and more digital. I got to tell you, I do a lot of my shopping online. I mean, Amazon is so convenient, and I do own Amazon stock, that I buy my toiletries from Amazon. It's well worth it. So I don't see us going to a full digital economy. Now, having said that, a study I read a couple years back, and I have not been able to disprove this, shows that about 50% of all currency in the United States is outside the United States, and it's held as a store of value. There was a picture circulating over the internet, and I was able to confirm it, and it showed a huge room, maybe a 20 by 20 foot room that was half full of American currency. And to no surprise, it was a drug dealer's room. But we are getting more and more. We're using digital all the time. I mean, I look at checks. I do all my bills online with bill pay. I used to use maybe 200-300 checks a year 20 years ago, whereas now I use maybe 10 to 20. And it's usually written out as gifts.
Yeah.
Well, now, okay, as that's for the basis for a society, which is finance, right?
Yes.
Now, something I see a lot of, and I did a whole review on this last night, or thought process, is the 15-minute cities, okay, combined with digital currency, digital ID, and then our social, what China's trying to set up. Actually, they already have it in place. Now, so I guess the gist of my question is, can you see something like that functioning here?
The really short answer is I don't know, but I don't see it happening in the near future.
Yeah.
I don't see it happening in the near future. I mean, what's going to happen 20 years from now? I mean, economics is a lot of things, but it's not an exact science, and not all economists agree on everything.
Yeah, that's kind of my thought process too. In the near future, no. This is America, right? We're not going to put up with this bullshit.
Exactly.
Exactly. But what I see happening though is, let's say because your social score is under 50%, and you want to go hop in your electric car and drive someplace, now you can't leave your 15-minute city because of that social score, and you can't buy electricity because the digital currency account has been locked. Is kind of what I foresee in the future here, if we let this kind of thing happen.
Mm-hmm. I mean, one of the things, you're talking about electricity. One of the things that worries me is the vulnerability of the electric grid in the United States. That's a whole nother topic, but that as an economist, as an individual, and as a cop, it's very vulnerable, and that worries me.
Well, it's just like right now with recently with the hacks on the water distribution systems that have occurred in the last couple of days.
Yeah.
Is an example of that. The electrical systems are just as vulnerable, if not more so.
Yeah.
Okay, that's all I got.
All right. So we have a comment from a Mr. White, sir. John, if you could address this here real quick. He's asking, can I have some life advice as an 18-year-old? I think that's a pretty valid question.
One of the things I remember from my childhood is I'm a third-generation Italian. Both sets of my grandparents came over on the boat. And one of my earliest memories comes from my paternal grandfather. Get an education, get a job, and save your money. So I pass that on to everyone, my kids included. Have a good work ethic. Now, one of the things I have always been on board with is an education. However, the cost of an education has eclipsed the cost of healthcare percentage-wise. It has just gotten ridiculous. I was at an alumni event a couple of weeks ago at the University of New Hampshire where I was a mentor to some underclassmen. Your education depends on what you're getting educated on. I was talking to business school students, and I taught in the business school for 20 plus years there, both part-time and full-time, and they all had a direct path. They knew what they wanted to do after graduation, where they wanted to go. They had internships scheduled for their junior, senior years. I talked to liberal arts students. What do you want to do? I'm not sure what I want to do after I graduate. What's your major? English, philosophy, women's studies. I mean, UNH has gotten expensive. In-state tuition is $18,000 with fees. Out-of-state tuition is approaching $40,000. That's just tuition, not room and board. Does the cost justify the benefit of a women's studies major? I don't know. I'm willing to say no. I mean, our education knowledge is weightless, and I'm becoming more and more of a proponent of getting a good trade and maybe online courses. But to answer his question, get a job, get life insurance very early. As a 18, 20, 21-year-older, life insurance is dirt cheap as opposed to in a 40-year-older. Start a retirement plan. If you put in 8% of the average income into, say, something like a 401k, a Roth, what have you, by the time you're early 40s, it's going to be over $1 million. The average return on the stock market, including dividends, prior to Trump for the past 50 years, prior to COVID, say, has been 11%. That's the S&P.
John,
Yeah.
This gentleman said he lives in England, so it's different over there. Is there a difference in what you're talking about now? Is this a international thing, or is this a United States thing versus everyone else thing?
I've been to England. The biggest difference I see in England compared to the United States, they're more socialist. For instance, their healthcare. But keep in mind, one of the questions I like to ask my students, if you had your choice of any car in the world, what would you pick? And they say McLaren, Ferrari, what have you. And I say, why don't you have it? And they say money. Well, money is a rationing process, okay, for scarce goods. Now, healthcare, it's free. So what's the rationing process for healthcare? It's time. It is time. I mean, I looked at a study, and this is about 6 years ago. And if you wanted an MRI in either England or Canada, just run-of-the-mill MRI, you are waiting 6 months. You're waiting 6 months. So whereas everything is more socialized in Europe, your taxes are a little bit more. well, make that a lot more, and your contribution will be a little bit less. But that's the basics. Get a good job, get an education, have a good work ethic, save your money. Save your money and put it in a retirement plan. Because as I'm sure Rini will agree with me, it goes by quickly.
Excellent. Thank you. Tammy, thank you so much. And Annie Kelly, trade schools should be advertised 100%. John, you believe,
Yes.
let's talk about that very quick, because there's been a lot of, I don't say pushback or social media jibber jab about trade schools versus your 4-year and your 6-year college degrees. What's your opinion on trade schools?
I love them. Plumber, electrician. I've got a plumber here in Hampton, and I'll give him a plug, Eric Alien Plumbing. He's expensive, but he does good work, and I can't do plumbing, okay? That is not my absolute advantage. So I hire someone, and it's $70 an hour, and that's more than my police detail rate. So I love the trades. Cannot speak highly enough about them, and this is very different from my opinion 20 years ago.
So it's changed as times change. Trade schools taken over as far as, well, if I understand this correctly, right? Trade schools you go to and you can pay them off rather quickly. But if you go to college, let's just say to be a doctor, right? Yeah, right. There you have it, right? Exactly, right there. So, what's your thoughts on that?
My son-in-law, love him dearly, just graduated from Tufts Dental. He's now down at University of Tennessee, and he's going to be an MD, DMD. So he's not going to be in the outside world till he's 31. He's going to have close to $1 million in debt. However, he's going to be an oral surgeon. Here up, he can do it. He'll do everything: oral surgery, cancer. He's expected to make $1 million his first year. So in that particular instance, the benefit justifies the cost, but not all costs are going to be less than the benefits depending on your education.
It's always about, and I say this on almost every episode we do, it's always about what is the cost? At what cost are you doing it?
Yeah.
Life to an economist is easy: costs and benefit. I go out, I pay $1.50 for a cup of coffee. Would I have paid $1.60? Yeah. So the benefit outweighed the cost for me.
On that one, right? But if you put that on a scale of, let's just talk about medical school, right? We're talking $500,000 for regular MD when you're done.
Yeah. Easily.
And you're not in the workforce until, let's just say, on the average, you're not in the workforce till you're 28, 30 years old.
Yeah, late 20s. Late 20s.
Accumulating all that debt in that entire time. And now it's a rat race, if you will, to pay that all back. Granted, there's scheduled payments and you have to make them, blah, 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 blah. But you have to be working. So then what happens when you don't get a job and you can't find that?
That happens frequently with lawyers, more so than doctors. Okay, frequently with lawyers. You get a law degree, like you said, mid to late 20s, very expensive, and a lot of times you're starting off as maybe a prosecutor or a public defender for $60,000, $50,000, and given your student debt that you have, again, benefits and costs.
Absolutely.
Right, you say something along the same lines is same subject is that if you learn a trade with your hands, if you can work with your hands, and that's something most all of us old beat up retired cops seem to do after we retire. Something to do with our hands, right? Assuming we're not retired. The point being is that if a lot of the degrees and the jobs now are digital, web design, all this internet stuff, so forth and so on. Now keep in mind, if the power goes off, all that shit goes away, right? But if you know how to work with your hands, if you can build something, if you can fix a car, if you can even be digging ditches, cutting firewood, whatever, then you're pretty much going to be able to continue on with your life one way or the other, and at least be a contributing member of society. So that's something to keep in mind.
Couldn't agree more. I'm seeing one question here from Annie about mortgage rates. Let me address that. Will they drop? Yes. Now, a little background on interest rates and mortgage rates. The Fed controls short-term interest rates. Mortgage rates are tied to the interest rate on the 10-year bond, which is currently around 4.4%. They're usually about 3% higher. So mortgage rates are over 7%, and the interest rate on the 10-year government bond usually parallels interest rates that the Fed deals with. So most economists, myself included, are looking at the second half of next year for the Fed to start cutting interest rates. Again, all other things being equal, right? All other things being equal. There's not a shock to the economy. A big bomb doesn't go off somewhere. So the quick answer to that question is yes. Are they going to go back? Like the mortgage rate on my house, we are downsized. We went from 5 kids living with us to 1. So we're in Hampton now, and I've got a 2 3/4% mortgage rate. Are you going to see that? No. Are you going to see 5%, maybe a little less than 5% in a year or two? I think so. I think so. And my answer to all long-term economic problems is going to be I think so or I don't think so. But yeah, I see them coming down in a year or so.
So,
And historically, you're looking at 5-6%. Okay, you're looking at 5-6%. So 5% mortgage rate. I'd be happy.
compared to what we're paying,
Yeah,
you know.
yeah.
Hey, quick question. In light of recent economics events, everybody's favorite subject, COVID-19. I've had it. It's miserable. Hope nobody else gets it. And the pandemic and the subsequent policy responses from the government. I read an article yesterday saying that the U.S. is going to forget the triple-demic is going to be a syndemic this winter with all the stuff that's coming.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering how, given the current strengths and weakness of the economy, if this happens, and factoring in what happened in 2020, how are these factors going to shape the trajectory of the economy, short term and long term? Don't mean to put you on the spot.
The quick answer is I don't know. COVID, I think, let's look at the past and then kind of matriculate towards the future. COVID, when we shut down the economy, I think most people will agree, even liberals, that was a big mistake. That did a lot of harm to the economy. All the stimulus packages that came, that helped fuel inflation. I mean, we're always going to have flu epidemics and what have you. So I like to think we learned a lot from COVID. I've seen people, Rainey, I agree with you that, yeah, if you got it, it was really bad. Now, my wife and I had gotten vaccines, and we both got it not this past summer, the summer before, and it was very mild for us. Maybe a function of the vaccines, and we have pretty good immune system, so it wasn't too bad for us. It was maybe a couple of days of a runny nose. But hopefully we learn from our past mistakes. We're not going to close the economy. I've been following the biotech industry since the mid-'90s, so if they tell me a vaccine is safe, for the most part, I'm okay with it. I haven't gotten to this most recent vaccine. I get a flu shot every year, so I got to tie that on my radar too much.
All right.
I'm worried more about the shingles than anything else.
I get the vaccine for that.
Yeah, I've gotten that too.
John,
Yes.
let's shift gears here and talk about another very extremely controversial topic. Actually, you know what? Let's hold on a second. We're going to take a break, and then as soon as we get back to the break, we're gonna. All right. Well, hold on. Never mind. We were going to take a break, but now we're not. So let's move on. All right.
Okay.
So, controversial topics, right? Keystone Pipeline has been a sore topic lately. Can you break down the implications of its construction and cancellation? And then specifically, or more specifically, How did it affect the job markets, energy prices, and overall economic growth? And are there any lasting effects that we should be aware of? And then
Yes. Stopping construction on the Keystone Pipeline, I think, was stupidity personified. A lot of environmentalists felt, okay, if we stop the Keystone Pipeline, that oil, it won't get pumped up, it won't get transported. No, it's getting transported by train. So let's take a look at some basic cost. The Keystone Pipeline, like the Alaskan Pipeline, if you transport oil by pipeline, it costs about $2 to $4 a barrel. Lee, do you want to take a break now and we'll continue afterwards? Or?
Yes. Let's take a short break and then we'll come right back.
Okay.
We all need to collect our thoughts and push this a little forward, but let's take a little break here. We'll be right back. Thank you.
Okay.
welcome back. John, thank you so much.
Yes.
All right. Keystone Pipeline.
Okay, so we left off. It costs $2 to $4 per barrel to transport oil by pipeline. Now, all that oil is still being transferred, but it's being transferred primarily by train and truck, and you're looking at $15 a barrel. Not only that, but when you transport oil by pipeline, you're not burning any of it. Trains, some of these trains are huge. They have 3 or 4 locomotives, and they're burning diesel oil. So all that gas is going, as a vapor, is going out into the atmosphere. So we're actually losing. It's increasing the cost of oil, and it was just dumb. No other word for it. If you, again, I think I said this earlier, do a Google search. Joe Biden, I'm going to eliminate oil. Well, that's not working out too well for him, because last month, according to the Energy Information Administration, they're pretty accurate on their figures, the United States set a record for oil production, 13.25 million barrels per day. So I think his energy policy, the Biden administration's energy policy, is just terrible. Okay, there's no other word for it. I like the idea of green energy. However, pick an energy source, and there's a very upset environmentalist somewhere. I mean, look at Massachusetts, arguably the most liberal state, along with California, in the nation. I was on the committee when Governor Deval Patrick, I used to teach energy economics at Bentley, when Deval Patrick was governor, and he was very pro, as was I, 130 wind generators 13 miles off the coast of Hyannis. And that couldn't pass. Okay, that couldn't pass. And again, it was liberal environmentalists holding up liberal green energy. So it's very frustrating. And I won't even get into electric vehicles, and I like the idea of electric vehicles. Even with the very high cost of electricity in New Hampshire, where Rini and I are from, it is cheaper to run an electric car than an internal combustion engine, an ICE car. However, if you were to replace all the internal combustion engines with electric vehicles, you would have to double to triple the electric grid. Okay, you would have to double to triple that. So, no, you can't have your cake and eat it too.
Right. There's a big, I don't even know what the word is, but there's a big movement both for and against EV stuff. As far as, does it work? When you see on the side of the road, when you see generators, diesel generators powering your electric pumps, just put your electricity in, what kind of message are we sending when we look at that?
The problem is the infrastructure or lack thereof. Let's take Boston. Okay, Boston's got 1.7 million people. A lot of people, pretty much everyone lives in apartments in Boston. It's a big college town. If you have an electrical vehicle in Boston and you're living in a high rise, even if you're living on Commonwealth Ave, the brick buildings, how are you going to charge your electric vehicles? You can't run an extension cord out there. It's not 110, it's 220. Yeah, so if you're living in suburbia, you could put it in your house, that's fine. But right now, on a wide scale basis, the infrastructure isn't there, it's not practical.
Okay, so with that being said, right, let's get into where I wanted to go with this. Does this set a precedent for future administrations to collapse on energy infrastructure deals?
Let me give you an example, and this is one of the favorite examples I used to give in class. Look at the Erie Canal in 1818. That was 360 miles long with 35 locks from Lake Erie to the Hudson River down in New York. That took only 7 years to build with 1818 technology. Okay, look at what we're going through right now. If you look at Route 93 in New Hampshire, from Salem to Manchester, that took 12 years to build. Okay, the first 4 years were all the paperwork. Okay, all the paperwork. I remember speaking to one of the managers there, and he told me that 30 to 40% of his cost was dealing with EPA regulations. And I mean, the EPA under Obama just went rampant. In the 8 years Obama was in office, he gave them free rein. And feel free to fact check me on this, because I fact checked this a number of times. The EPA in 8 years passed 4,000 different regulations.
4,000.
Okay, 4,000. 4,000 extra regulations. So regulation transfers into higher cost, transfers into more time. So it's got to be streamlined. It has got to be streamlined.
Absolutely. So there's a Facebook user who said just a couple of minutes ago, he said, by closing the pipeline, Biden has increased the carbon footprint he swore to reduce, right? Now,
that's ludicrous. He increased it. He increased it because you're transporting by train and you're burning more oil.
Right. So this is a segue into a big piece of what I wanted to cover for today. So, John, forgive me if this hits you on the a different angle, but it's a question I have, right? Now, how come there was never any specific mention of any budgeting for any sort of mental health? You know, as we talk about in this particular category, right? And then why is there no real public mental health push that's eluding the economic, I don't even know what the hell to call it.
Now, John, before you answer that, you're still on the job, and so am I. We see it every freaking day. We're dealing with it. So this is a very important question that Lee just asked. It's a concern that I have. It's a concern that a lot of people have that I know.
That's not my expertise as an economist, but like Rini said, we see it every day as cops. So the short answer is I don't know. However, I will say this. I think politicians pick a particular path, so that, especially federal in Congress, so they could get reelected. Okay, so they could get reelected. And I think that contributes significantly to our debt. Because how do congressmen and women get reelected? By bringing money into their district. Okay, I'll vote for this if you vote for that. And mental health just isn't on everyone's view screen, and it should be. I mean, there's this big push to outlaw guns. That's not going to, that's just not going to happen. There's a little thing called the Second Amendment. I don't have problems on, background checks, and as a cop, I like those. But take New Hampshire, which has arguably the most liberal laws in the nation. You don't need a permit to carry concealed. And look at Chicago, that has the most stringent laws in the nation. There's over 3,000 shootings there. If I say it's the Wild West, it's a lot worse than that. So, and it's mental health, it's a lot of things. I see the federal government leaving that up to the state, and that's not something the state spend a lot of money. Granted, New Hampshire this year and the past year has been spending more money on it, partly because we've had really good surpluses from what I think is good financial management. Kudos to Governor Sununu. But, what really aggravates me is when people say, assault weapons. We should outlaw all assault weapons. Well, I could do a lot more damage in close quarters with a shotgun with double-aught buck than I can with any rifle with a large capacity magazine.
Right, but these steel weapons look cleaner,
Exactly.
right? They
Yes.
look like they cause more damage, but I look, John, I don't want to get into this on the economic side. I mean, we can have this conversation on another one because we're both very passionate about this, and I'm sure we can do an hour's on each of us just dialogue. So
Easily.
I apologize, but we have to move on to your expertise. Right?
So I got a quick question. An unpopular subject, Donald John Trump, 2016. Donald Trump is big into trade dynamics. He's big, as we all know, big into tariffs, trade agreements, NAFTA, and global economic trends. That being said, what impact does international trade dynamics, including tariffs, global economic trends, and trade agreements have on the domestic economy, and how might these factors influence our economic health going down the road?
Okay, let me get into basic economic theory. And again, I'll be the first to admit economics is not an exact science. When we trade, we are taking advantage of what we call comparative advantage. And essentially what that is what a nation can produce cheaply. For instance, how come we don't grow bananas in New Hampshire? Now, the short answer is we can't, but we can grow bananas, little teeny tiny bananas, all right? But what do we grow instead? We grow apples, we grow potatoes, we grow corn, and we trade with other states and other countries from down south that can grow bananas. So we do things cheaper, and that's the idea behind trade. Taking advantage of another country's ability to produce something cheaper while in turn they purchase from us. So in a general statement, I don't like tariffs, but there are also exceptions and caveats to the rule. For instance, computer chips and trade with China. We're in constant conflict with China. When I left Bentley to go to UNH, I taught Chinese students for a year and a half, and I really got some insight to their culture. Chinese students, from what I was able to glean in that year and a half, are brought up that you're responsible for your success. And if that includes cheating, okay. It is, ask any, and they'll be reluctant to say this because universities love to be politically correct. Ask any university dean of students what group of students they will have cheating. They will say Chinese. If not, they're lying. Okay, if not, they're lying. So that is how they are brought up. And now, have they stolen technology from us? No doubt. So in some instances, getting back to tariffs, I could see if we're in conflict or potential conflict with a country that we put tariffs on their goods and produce them in-house. But for the most part, like say with the European Union, our biggest trade partners are Canada and Mexico, particularly in light of NAFTA. I like free trade. But there are caveats and exceptions to that rule.
Do you consider Canada and Mexico a good trading partner?
Canada, more so than Mexico.
Well,
Canada, much more so than Mexico.
okay. All right.
All right. Interesting that you brought that up, and that what your point is on tariffs, that you're for and against, and it does have its place. You know, they're on that. You know, that's not very political of you. You're supposed to take one of these, right? But interesting that you did that. You know, the challenge for me is always understanding it from like my perspective, and then from a guy like yours perspective, who's been there, done that, and has the credentials to prove that, and then widening my base of understanding, because I don't have that same view up until just when you just said that. So
Yeah, good. Thank you.
thank you for that. All right, so moving right along, I want to talk about
I
something.
digress to Donald Trump for a second.
Oh yeah, sure, absolutely.
love his policies. Except for the debt, okay? I mean, there's a year or two there he didn't have to run a deficit, and we had the best economy in 60 years. We should have been running a surplus, but for the most part, love his policies. But keep in mind, there are 30% of the people who are Republicans registered, 30% registered Democrats. It's independents who pretty much choose our president. And there are some people who just have this visceral hatred of him. Here's the problem I'm worried about in the next election. If he doesn't get the nomination, he's going to run anyway. And he may split the Republican vote. But you also have Manchin, who may run, who will split the Democratic vote. So if no one gets a majority of electoral votes, what happens? It goes to the House of Representatives. Yeah. It's happened twice before, 1824, 1877, and they pick who's going to be the president. So this next election, I don't know.
You got to hold your breath now.
Yeah. And I'm looking at one comment. Yes, the consumer does pay for the tariff, ultimately.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Twice, 2 or 3 times, right? You're taxed on the money you earn. You're taxed on the money that you're spending. And then you taxed on the money that you've already spent that you're spending again.
Exactly. Yep, death and taxes, only thing you can count on.
Yeah. All right. Cool. So I want to circle back here real quick on the gas price inflation thing.
Okay.
I come from the credit card processing industry, and my big niche was gas stations, right? And, pay to pump and card prices. So I understand a lot about rack prices, fuel. I understand about development and that ExxonMobil got out of the business for a little while. Now they're back in the business, right? So the challenge for me is when gas prices rise, I already know that when there's nothing wrong. It doesn't cost any more to mine any more oil. It doesn't cost anyone anything more to make gas out of the refinery. So, my question specifically is, because it always confuses the shit out of me, is are there any key trends or factors that we should be keeping an eye out for long term when it comes to gas versus inflation?
Yes. Gas is, to me, the price of gas going up is one of the major causes of inflation, because it affects everyone and everything across the board. Now what makes up the price of gas? About 55% of that is the price of oil. And what's very important, again, is expectations. And the price of oil and natural gas skyrocketed after Ukraine got invaded and after President Biden said he's going to end fossil fuels, which he hasn't done. So what else is, state and federal taxes? Well, the federal tax on gas is 18.4%. It's 18.4 cents, and it's been that way since 1992. But state taxes are drastically different.
Right. New Jersey and New York are so much higher, and they used to be.
The highest in the nation is California, 77 cents a gallon. The lowest is Alaska at 9 cents a gallon. New Hampshire's 23 cents. Massachusetts is 27 cents. So that's about 15 to 20% of the cost of gasoline. The other factor.
Hold on 1 second, if I may. Right. So, are you putting in the fact that when they used to pay the pump or they pay their credit cards, they still got to pay percentages? Let's call it. I think it's like less than 1% plus 10 cents per transaction. On top of that.
Okay.
That factors in to the overall cost for that gas station owner, right? That's why they used to. I mean, I don't want to put anybody on the spot here outside who's listening, but there's a ton of New Yorkers in the unbranded gas situation that used to get gas from Jersey to stop paying that 30, 40 cents excise tax.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, one of the things you don't see anymore is a standalone gas station. Okay.
Well, in New York, we have them, right? We call them unbranded.
Oh,
brand new gas station.
just standalone? Because what I'm saying is, all the gas stations up here, they either make most of their money from car repair, or they have like Speedway, Raceway, what have you. They have big grocery stores.
Right. So the C stores, right? So in New York, there's a group. The names don't matter, but there's roughly 50 or 60 of them from Montauk to the Nassau-Queens border, and some in Queens now. And they're still independent, right? So they're not. I know I come from this industry, so I know what they're doing, and they're fighting it tooth and nail. What the gas prices? Sometimes you make a penny, sometimes you make a quarter a gallon, depending, right?
Exactly.
Like you said before, though, some of them are using repair shops over by you. By here on Long Island, they all have convenience stores.
Yeah, same up here. Same up here.
This is the drawer in.
Yeah. I mean, the other thing that I was going to say earlier is each state has its own additives that they put in the gasoline. As you can imagine, California, last year, in some counties in California, the average price of gas was over $6 a gallon, but California has all these additives that they put in their gasoline that places like Alaska, New Hampshire don't put in. Okay, and that adds to the cost of the gas because the refinery has to retool. So, I mean, that adds to it also.
Yeah.
John, do you think OPEC has anything to do with the price of gas, really?
Oh, yeah, to some extent. Keep in mind, OPEC, the 11 countries in it, account for about 38% of the world's oil production. So if they say they're going to cut production, one, there's a lot of cheating. Okay, the poorer countries like Nigeria, Venezuela, what have you, they'll cheat if they impose a bogey on, okay, you can't do more than this per day, more than 2 million barrels per day. But they don't have the effect they used to back in, say, the 70s, 80s.
So here's my question. If OPEC decided to charge, just hypothetically, $10 a barrel for oil, do you think we'd see gas prices are up close to $4 a gallon now? Do you think we'd actually see the gas prices come down?
Yeah, I do. Again, there is competition out there, and here in New Hampshire, the average price of gas is last I checked, which was earlier in the week, was $3.23 a gallon, slightly lower than the national average of $3.25. The sweet point, I think, for the price of oil is somewhere between $65 to $75 per barrel. As a general rule of thumb, for every $1 change in the price of a barrel of oil, whether up or down, it equates to about 2.5 cents at the pump. So the reason I say $65 to $75 is, there are some wells that you dig a hole, the oil just bubbles up.
Hey, John,
Take a break?
We're going to take a quick break here. We'll be right back. Thank you.
Sure.
Sorry about that.
That's okay. I'm easy.
All right.
That's my.
Right. Cool. John.
Yeah, Lee, this, one thing I want to hit on, I misunderstood a previous viewer's question that by closing the pipeline, Biden has increased the carbon footprint. I misunderstood that and thought it was the reverse, but yes, he's absolutely right. He's absolutely right. Where were we?
I don't know.
We're talking about gas stations.
We're talking about tariffs, gas station taxes,
Yeah.
and then Rennie brought up internationally with how this
The price of oil.
OPEC, yeah.
across the world. That's where we were.
Yeah, I think OPEC does have an effect, but they're not as strong as they were, 70s, 80s, 90s. Especially now that we're producing 13.25 million barrels of oil per day, and it looks like that's going to go up. And again, the sweet spot for oil, I think, is somewhere between $65 to $75 a barrel, because that'll give us gasoline at around $2.50 a gallon, again, depending on the state. Now, we've spent some time recently in Tennessee, and I love that state, and go Volunteers. Gas is very cheap down there. A combination of it doesn't cost a lot of money to transport it there, and they have low state taxes. The thing is, if it goes much below $65, there are some oil wells that you dig a hole in the ground, the oil just bubbles up. Others, you got to frack. And fracking is more expensive. Offshore drilling is more expensive than, say, some wells in Texas. But again, with technology, which is the United States' comparative advantage, with technology, it's really made us able to produce a lot more oil.
Absolutely. It's always a challenge because you said it earlier about, I'm going to paraphrase. Somebody's going to be mad. Somebody's going to be happy. Doesn't matter what you say.
Yeah.
Someone's going to have something to say about something else on the other side. Flip a coin today, that person will have this view. Flip a coin tomorrow with a wild hair up that person's butt, he'll have a different view.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a huge challenge. Rennie.
John, I got one more question, buddy. Given the current economic climate, what are the most pressing challenges facing the economy, and what policy measures or structural changes could be implemented to support sustainable growth, sustainability, and profitability?
One of the things that concerns me is the labor force participation rate. And this is down drastically from, say, 25 years ago. That is the percentage of the labor force that's working outside of the entire labor force that can work. And that labor force participation rate is about 63%.
Do you think, let me, before you, I want to interrupt you. Do you think it has anything to do with the free $600 checks everybody was getting?
It has a lot to do with that, and it has a lot to do with liberal government benefits. Because there are a lot of people out there who are saying, why should I go and work when I can get all these benefits? And again, that depends on the state. And in economics, we have something that's called adverse selection. Let's take a look at New Hampshire. In New Hampshire, we have amongst the lowest unemployment rate in the nation. I want to say the previous month that we have it was 2.1, 2.2% in New Hampshire. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, we got to a low of about 1.9%. Well, what happens? We don't have very generous unemployment benefits in New Hampshire like, say, Massachusetts has. I think the maximum unemployment benefit we have is around $450, and you could only collect that for 13 weeks. Now, if I'm chronically unemployed for whatever reason, if I'm chronically unemployed, would I rather be living in New Hampshire or Massachusetts? Well, I would rather be living in Massachusetts, because in some instances, you could get up to $900 a week for 26 weeks, and in some circumstances, you could get up to a year. So that contributes to the labor force participation rate, or lack thereof.
All right. Thank you.
So to answer that question, I am going to compare and contrast what was done during two recessions. We had the Obama stimulus in response to the recession of 2008, 2009, and the Reagan stimulus in response to the double dip recession of the early 80s. Now, a lot of people are saying the recession of 2008, 2009 was the worst recession since the Great Depression. No, it wasn't. The only superlative you could give that recession is that it was the longest, 16 months. The double dip recession of the early 80s was brutal. We had a high unemployment rate of 10.8%. The unemployment rate stayed above 10% for about 5 to 7 months. The exact number eludes me, but that was also coupled with an inflation rate of 11%. So we had something in the early 80s and 90s that we called the misery index, and it was a combination of the unemployment rate and the inflation rate, and that was up around 21%. By contrast, in the recession of 2008, 2009, that some people refer to as the Great Recession, the unemployment rate was at a high for 10.2%, and that was only for 1 month. And we actually had deflation between 2008 to 2009 of 2.3%. So prices actually went down. So that recession was nowhere near as bad. So what did Reagan do? Well, what Reagan did was he stimulated business investment. Okay. At the time, I owned a flight school and charter business, and I was able to buy a $100,000 plane for only $75,000 because there was an investment tax credit of 25%. So now I've got an extra plane on my flight line. What do I need with that extra plane? Well, I need pilots. I need people to gas the planes. So when you stimulate business investment, and by that I mean investment on capital goods, goods that last more than a year, goods that, can earn money, but you need people to run those goods. That's referred to as supply side economics. He also reduced the income tax rate. Keep in mind, the highest income tax rate we ever had was during World War II at 92%. Kennedy, by the time Kennedy got into office in 1961, it was 90%. He reduced it to 70%. The economy took off. Reagan reduced it to 28%. So keep this in mind. Say you're thinking about starting a business. You're an entrepreneur. So wait a second. Do I want to start a business if I'm getting taxed at 70% and I only get 30% back on every dollar I make? Or do I want to start a business where I'm getting taxed at 28% and I get to keep 62 cents on every dollar I make? So when you stimulate investment, you stimulate businesses, you hire people, unemployment goes down. The unemployment rate went from 10.2% to 7.5% in 16 months under Reagan. Obama was a giveaway. Let's look at some of the things from the Obama stimulus. And I will argue that the Obama stimulus was actually a liberal democratic agenda in stimulus clothing. You had cash for clunkers. They gave you $4,000 back on every old car that you traded in. And what did they do with those old cars? Nice puppy. What did they do with those old cars? They destroyed them. Well, what did that do to the used car market? According to Edmunds.com, which is a great website, according to Edmunds.com, the average price of a used car increased 17%. Who buys used cars? Well, people who don't make that much money, okay? People who don't make that much money. So it hurt them. Unemployment benefits went for 2 years. Not only did the federal government increase them for 2 years, but they paid 65% of your COBRA life insurance. What is the incentive to work? So to answer your question, Randy, there's that old Yankee saying, the proof of the pudding is in the eating. I like the supply side economics. I like stimulating business investment because you're going to hire more people.
Strange you mention that. It's a very dear friend of mine just gave up her practice. She's a multimillionaire, and she's now investing in startup businesses in the medical end. So
Yeah, I mean, the income tax rate is now 37%. That's
Yeah.
pretty good. That's pretty good. I mean, one other thing. In the early 80s, people always say the rich don't pay their fair share of taxes. Well, in the early 80s, the top 1% of income earners in the United States paid a little bit under 18% of all the income taxes collected by the federal government. By the late 80s, it was up to over 30%, and right now it's around 40%. 1% of the economy, 1% of the wage earners are paying 40% of all the income taxes.
Okay.
Well, that's the numbers get skewered as you make more money, right? Because there's a bracket. Because my son makes a lot of money now, and he was complaining to me. Right, exactly, right. Park Avenue problems, I call it. Right. He complains to me that he pays more money in taxes than most people do in their annual salary.
Yes, absolutely.
Right. So, what's the answer? Shut up and pay your taxes, or don't make money.
Well, you got states like California that people are moving out of California. You got states like New York, they're moving out of New York. Where are they moving to? Arizona, Texas, that have less taxes. And again, it's adverse selection. It is adverse selection. I mean, Massachusetts just passed their another state income tax, an extra 4% on people making over $1 million a year. Oh, okay. I'd move to New Hampshire. I mean, a lot of the things Massachusetts does, I want to call the New Hampshire Economic Recovery Program. Thank you very much, Massachusetts.
Yeah.
Right. All right. We're gonna have to wind down here shortly, but I just wanted to, John, is there anything else that you wanted to cover that we haven't covered?
We pretty much hit a lot of the things that we had talked about. If there's anything else, I got to talk about the upcoming election. I would have mentioned that. That worries me. I mean, there's a good it does and it doesn't. There's a good chance it's going to go, or there's a chance it's going to go to the House of Representatives, and it's Republican. But I know there are some people who are Trump, and there are some people who are never Trump. So it's going to be a lesson.
Time shall tell on this one.
Yeah.
Right? All right. Ren, you got anything for John before we head out?
No, I'm pretty good. I can pick up the phone and call me anytime I want. John, I'll get together with you either this week or next week and get you a copy of that book, brother.
Sounds good. Likewise here.
Yeah.
Chet, anything?
Yeah. Hey, John, how can people get a hold of you if they want to find you?
I've got a website, johntomasi.com, and it's TOMMASI, 2 M's, 1 S's. And it used to be, when I was teaching a purely economic website, but my email is on there, jrtomasi@aol.com. And also on that website is the prologues and chapter 1s of all the books that I've read. So I'll throw a little plug in there too.
Good.
Excellent. So before we head out, I just want to get. I know you touched briefly on this, but what's your opinion on the House right now?
It's probably the same opinion that's been for about the past 30 years. It's dysfunctional. I would love to see term limits, but I remember talking to Kelly Ayotte a while back when she was running for Senate the second time around, and we were talking about term limits, and I think that is the answer to a lot of solutions. But are we ever going to get 3 term limits in the House? I think the only way that we will see term limits is if everyone in the House now is grandfathered in. Okay, because I mean, you have these career politicians, and it's the best job they'll ever have. It is the best job they'll ever have, and can they do anything else? Well, some can, probably most can't. So I would love to see term limits, but I think the only way you'll see it is a constitutional amendment where you got to get 2/3 vote from 2/3 of the states, or if Congress, and then Congress has to ratify it, or if Congress does it itself, and I see the only way them doing it is if they grandfather
I'm
themselves
just
in.
going to say that
Go ahead,
constitutionally speaking, we can't term limit any federal officer. That said, some people would argue that we already do have term limit. It's called a ballot box.
Called the what?
Ballot box.
Yeah. Yeah, but I mean, some people just go to a ballot box, they see a name, and that's it.
Okay. Good answer.
Well, we have a couple of minutes left, but I want to make sure we got that in there because for me that was a hot button, right? The term limits. This is what comes up for me when you say that. What does the average knucklehead in government make annually, right? $180,000, $190,000 a year,
And yet they're all millionaires.
right? So, wait. How in God's name, in vain, are they all millionaires minus two?
Prior to 2012, and I know Scott Brown and Gail Huff Brown, I think the world of them. Prior to 2012, it was legal for United States congressmen and women to trade on insider information. It wasn't illegal for the rest of us, okay? It wasn't illegal for the rest of us. In 2012, the reason why I mentioned Scott Brown, he was able to get past a law that said you cannot legally trade on you cannot legally trade on insider information. However, are they privy to insider information on stocks? Absolutely. Absolutely. So I suspect that's how they do it. I suspect they do it legally. I'll give them the benefit of the doubt there. I may be stretching that a little bit, but they're still privy to a lot of information that you and I are not.
Yeah. Hey, Blaze is going to join us for the last few minutes. He's got a few points.
Yeah.
Excellent.
I rest my case. Millionaires are made in Congress.
Yeah.
Blaze, there you are, buddy.
Hey, gents, how are you?
Good.
Outstanding.
I just got guys, look, I'll say it live so that way when everybody goes back to rewatch it, if the show's going great, man, we'll make time. You know what I mean? You guys are on driving me nuts because I'm here producing the show and there's so many topics that are going on. And I just want to just come in and, you know, and I'm messaging chat and I'm messaging radio. I'm like, wait a minute, why is there no disagreement here? You know what I mean? Everybody's on the same page. And I don't mean disagreement by, stirring up the pot type of disagreement, but come on. I mean, everybody's in agreement with everything that John has to say on the show today.
We're all like-minded individuals here.
Well, and so am I. But I mean, for instance, okay, terms in the Senate, the House, all of them terms. John saying something about the ones that are already there should be grandfathered in. Okay, and Lee, 10 seconds. What do you think? What's your thoughts on that, real quick?
I don't want to see another Dianne Feinstein dying in office 92 years and 60 goddamn years of uselessness.
Right.
That's my thoughts.
Okay.
I don't think
Rainey?
they should be.
I think well, like I said, I believe there should be term limits. There should be a constitutional amendment. Career politicians are a problem. They get in there, they serve 1 or 2 years, and they get a $174,000 pension for life. Should anybody be grandfathered in? I'm not grandfathered into my job, and neither should they. And I gotta say, as long as you get me going on, every single one of them suck. Okay, I don't care. Name one, they all suck. Look what they just did to George Santos the other day.
There we go.
They kicked
Go,
him out of
Rainy.
Congress.
There
Okay?
you go.
He hasn't even been to court yet. Okay? He's kicked out of Congress. But you got the guy that pulls the fire alarm, which is a felony. He's been arraigned. Nothing's happened to him. There were two standards. Come on, guys.
Chat.
Yeah, he's not saying they should be. He's saying that that's the only way it would ever work. These idiots aren't going to vote themselves out of a job because, let's face it, that's the only job most of them have ever had, and the only job most of them can ever do. You know, so you grandfather them in. You know, for our generation, it's not going to do a damn thing. But maybe sometime 10, 20 years from now, it'll make a difference.
Okay. So, John, 10 seconds. You can rebuttal those guys.
Pretty much what Chet said. I don't want to see any of them in any longer than they should be, but the only way it'll pass, in my opinion, is if they grandfather themselves in. So I'm willing to give up a little bit on that.
Okay, I agree with that because nothing's just going to happen, especially in our government. Somebody's going to want something. You know what I mean? So, you know, I'm not going to speak for John, but the way I'm looking at it is like John just said. You know what I mean? We're not happy with the idea of grandfathering in, but in order for this to work, you know what I mean? Then we got to give them a little bit. So yeah, and then right, and then not to be an ass about things, but you know they'll die off eventually, and then before you know it, there's term limits. You know what I mean? I mean we won't see it, but I got a question again for you all. And these are again some of the things I wanted to jump in and say. Lobbyist. What's your thoughts on lobbyists? John, I'm going to go with you first, and then I'm going to have Lee, Rainey, or Chet go after you with it there.
I don't know that much about it to speak intelligently. The only thing I could speak intelligently for is we used to have a lobbyist, Mrs. Carpenito, for the Police Association, and she was very good, and she helped us quite a bit. So as far as benefits and costs go, I can't speak intelligently on that.
Lee?
From what I understand, and John, I appreciate that. You can't not speak intelligently if you don't know enough, because I don't either. But what I do know is the challenge for lobbyists is it's legal bribery. I said it out loud. There you go.
Yeah, don't necessarily disagree.
Rain.
Like John, haven't been involved in the police union and the fire union. Lobbyists should be outlawed. They're out to make money.
Every prostitute needs a pimp and a customer.
How do you really feel?
Quote of the day.
Gosh darn it. I just felt that Chet was coming out with something good because everybody's answering and his smile's getting bigger and bigger and bigger as he's going
I've been
on.
saving that for the whole show, so that's all you get at.
Chet is our very own Senator John Kennedy.
There you go. I mean, for me, it's tough. It's a tough question. That's why I wanted to throw it at you, gentlemen. And again, John, kudos. I'm not that intelligent in it that much either, but we know lobbying could be good and good, like 15% good, and 80-85%. The rest is just people trying to just get what they need. Corporations and their lobbying, and once you start lining the politician's pocket with money, it does get them to vote your way. Would you say that's fair to say? I'm going to go with John with this one.
Oh yeah, I won't disagree with that.
I know a lobbyist that's looking. I know a good lobbyist that's looking for a job. His name is Hunter Biden.
Yeah.
Well, he does.
Yeah, that's funny.
So
it's true.
It's true.
That's sad. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Too much.
Okay.
It is. It's too much, man.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Listen, guys, I appreciate you letting me take over the show. It was fun. You know what I mean? I do this again, if John's got time or any of you,
Oh, yeah, I love it.
any of you guys, you know what I mean? I'd love to have you just jump on The Way We See It, which is my show that comes on Tuesday nights from
Yep.
7 to 9 here on the FFN network. It's been a pleasure. But again, now that I'm here, again, who's got time? Because I love talking this shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
For me, can we get a quick grade? I know what the answers are going to be, but in kind of a little bit of detail. Okay, all right. Biden, Biden, his policies. Is he too old? Should he run again? Okay, look, we the five of us here, I think I could say that, the biggest word that's floating around in our head right now, and it's sad to say because he is our president of the United States, no matter what, he's the president of the United States. Okay, that's my take on it. But first thing that comes to mind is a bumbling idiot for me. Okay.
Should he run again? Yes, because it'll be easy to beat.
Let's go with Chet on this one. Chet, it's not as well. You're scaring me though, Chet. I bring up Biden, you're holding a switchblade.
Yeah, that's a letter opener.
Yeah, oh, okay. All right. I'm just saying.
Anyway,
go ahead, bud.
Yeah, I think Joe Biden is nothing more than Barack Obama's third term. It's as simple as that. If you want to know what he's doing, why he's doing anything that he's doing, just go back and look at 8 years of Obama, and you'll see exactly what's happening. I don't want to see him fail because he's old. I don't want to see him fail at all because he's hurting the country. But it's not because he's old. It's not because he has sudden onset dementia. It's not because I question a lot of his moral decisions. It's because he's intentionally doing things that are harming the people of the United States of America and allies and others across the world. It's as simple as that. He's doing exactly what the Democrats and Barack Obama are telling him to do.
Right. Rainey.
Joe
Rainey.
Biden.
Sorry. Right. Okay. Joe Biden. Rainey, who's pulling his strings?
Barack Obama. Joe Biden's is an absolute zero. In all practical terms, absolute zero is minus 300 degrees. So Obama's actually, the Obama administration's running the country.
Rainey, you think like Obama is actually on the phone with this bobblehead? And
no, Obama's not on the phone with the bobblehead. Obama's on the phone with the people that are making these dumbass decisions every day. He's telling John Kirby what to say. He's telling Pumpkinhead what to say in the press briefings. Obama's still got his hands in this. And I'm going to go you one better than that. Michelle Obama wants nothing to do with running. My prediction is if there's going to be an election.
She wasn't happy when he was running.
I don't think it will be. I think it's going to be Hillary Clinton for the Democrats.
You think so again?
Yep.
You think she goes up against Trump again?
Listen,
because this would be a good time.
I think the Constitution is going to be suspended and there ain't going to be an election. That's my train of thought right now. But
I mean, because
it's going to be another steal.
I could see. That scares me too.
I got a notice the other day saying that they're trying to subpoena the FBI is trying to subpoena my records because I had communications with Donald John Trump. Okay, that's how far down they're reaching.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, no insult to you, but yeah, that's fucking crazy.
Yeah.
Lee, come on, man.
What John said, what Chet said, and what Rennie just said.
Oh, you can't get off that easy, Lee. Let's go.
Wait. I'm getting there. Right. I agree with parts of everything they said, and specifically, I don't want to see our government fail because that affects us ultimately. The challenge is going to be, and I've been saying this for 15 years, is that there's going to come a time in this world, and hopefully not in my time, that your local government, your local supporting agencies, EMS, fire, everyone else is not going to be able to support you. It's going to crash, and it's going to happen. And then what are you going to do? This is just pure opinionated talk, right? Maybe some facts thrown in. Personally, I don't give a shit what happens at that level, because the trickle down effect is what I care about. What happens where we are and what are we going to do about it? That's all I care about.
I mean, if I could interject one, but if I had to sum up Biden in one word, Freudian slip there, I would say disappointment. If you look at his voting record prior to being vice president, if as a Democrat, he was more towards the moderate
He's a
end.
racist too.
And in his inauguration speech, he said, I want to be the president for all people. I was willing to give him his chance. And, I said that on Facebook. I caught some flack from it, but I don't care. I was willing to give him a chance, but I just got severely disappointed. He immediately, in my opinion, started pandering to the left.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. I got one more from me, if that's okay, gentlemen.
You bet.
Like I said, we go long. No. Look, this is what scares me is, my oldest boy, his generation. I mean, you see what's going on around and especially in this country. You got college students, and what blows my mind the most is the LGBTQ community going out and carrying Palestine flags. Okay. And that to me right there tells me that these people, okay, have no clue on what, you know what I'm saying? No clue on what any of this is all about, because none of them people, I apologize, none of them people, and excuse the pun, it'd get caught dead in that area.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm going to paraphrase what Nikki Haley said. They're not only saying death to Israel, they're saying death to America. Hello? And what's aggravating me, particularly my alma mater, UNH, where I got all three of my degrees from UNH, they didn't condemn this. And that drove me nuts. And I'm very good friends with the director of alumni relations, and I think she's extremely competent. Susan Entz, she's wonderful. And I told her, this is a reason I don't donate to the university anymore. Okay? It's take a stand.
Yeah, take it right.
Two things on that subject.
Bad chat.
One is there's a burning question that I have that I asked earlier today is how were millions and millions of Palestine flags distributed worldwide for a protest that started on November 8th, all of a sudden. And the other concern or other comment that I had reference to you, Blaise, specifically, is that all those folks had better hope that the fairy wings in their costumes for parades have work when somebody tosses them off a building head first, because that's what they do.
That's what I'm saying. I mean, I swear to God, somebody should just take it. Look, man, I don't care. And this is the truth for me. I don't care what anybody does with your life. Okay, I don't care what you do to it, man. Don't preach it to me. If I disagree with you, just leave me alone. I don't want to hear about that.
Yeah,
it's
called respect.
Exactly, and they absolutely have no idea. I mean, somebody should take them in a room, okay, and show them pictures, video, because it's out there.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, what happens if you get caught being a homosexual by Hamas or anybody in Palestine or anything?
Yeah,
they'll literally throw you off a freaking bridge, cut your head off, mutilate you, and they're out there with these flags on. And that's all I know in my head. These people have no idea.
Zero clue.
What the hell they are protesting.
Nope.
Okay. And all the other little normal minions or whatever, all little college students that are getting brainwashed by crazy liberal fucking Sorry for my French professors. You know what I mean? And that's what I mean by the next is the generation, man.
Yeah.
What you're seeing is the generation that's going to run this country some way, somehow down the line. And I'm glad I'm not going to be around to see it.
Yeah,
And
me neither.
my wife's upset about it right now, but my son and my daughter-in-law look at me and say, "Man, I don't know if we want to bring a kid in this world."
I feel bad for my kids and my grandkids.
Yes. Any
right.
thoughts on that?
Please. Nah, I have to run.
All right.
This
Sure.
is the end of my time. I
Sorry.
have to run. But
I
thank
love
you
it
so
too much.
I appreciate your insight. And let's get Renee, you want to take us out real quick?
Yeah, this show's been sponsored by i12 GIA.com, Peace of Mind Training, where you can go for all your public safety needs. I'd like to thank my dear friend, I consider him a lifelong friend, John Tomasi, for being on today and sharing his expertise.
Love you, Greeny. Thanks for having me.
John, a pleasure. Always a pleasure. And I'll get together with you. I'll get you a copy of that book.
Sounds good.
All right, gentlemen, this has been another great episode of Situational Awareness Matters. Blah, blah, blah. Real talk with real people. Have a wonderful day. We'll see you next week.
Thank you,
so
guys.
much.
Take care, guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, John.
Okay. Holy crap.